Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Week 6 Rotoworld Waivers Q&A. I am Patrick Daugherty, joined by our waivers guru, Mr. Kyle Dvorchak. Not a huge week on waivers. Not a lot of great names for your consideration. So it might be more of like a let's make a trade week or let's go dumpster diving in the waivers trade week. But people got to add people, Kyle. There's only 2 teams on bye this week. Who would you say is the ad of the week for Week 6 on waivers?
To me, for most leagues, the top ad will be Josh Downs. When we've seen Gardner Minshew play a meaningful amount of snaps, he's averaged 7.7 targets, 6 catches, and 64 yards per game. And I'm projecting Gardner Minshew to play at least a few games in the upcoming weeks. So Josh Downs, an elite rookie prospect in my mind, is going to be the top waiver wire ad.
A lot of injury uncertainty this week, uncertainty with James Conner, uncertainty with Roschon Johnson, who probably would be the waiver wire ad of the week. Khalil Herbert out multiple weeks with a high ankle sprain. But we just don't know if Roschon Johnson is going to be ready to suit up for what should be a really high scoring game with the Vikings. Roschon is in the concussion protocol. Would you call Roschon the ad of the week if we knew for sure that he was healthy? He's closer to 50% rostered than Josh Downs is. But if we knew Roschon was going to play on Sunday against the Vikings, would you call him the ad of the week? Even though we know D'Onta Foreman's going to be, he won't be a healthy scratched again. He'll be active. What would you tell folks about Roschon?
Yeah, I think Roschon would normally be the top ad, but as you pointed out, he's dealing with concussion, and we've seen players who even get into a limited practice and still end up missing that upcoming game because of the concussions, because of the way the concussion protocol works. So I would say for him, he's probably priority ad outright, but also he is rostered in a way higher percentage of leagues. He's 41%, if I remember correctly. So it felt a little unfair to say this guy who's available in just over half of leagues and is not a guarantee to play this week. Though
Not
I think
in my league.
He's the ultimate. That is the exact reason I couldn't run with him as the headline. I cannot handle the not in my league guys. He is in my waiver wire column, which is live now as the priority ad. But I mentioned that we don't know if he's going to play. He's much more rostered. And if we knew, for instance, he wasn't going to play, that would almost boost D'Onta Foreman, even for just a game, essentially, into high-end RB2 status. So he could be considered, especially for running back being kind of a tougher position, one where you're sort of forced to stream at some points, given how terrible the injuries have been this year and essentially every year. He could be considered the top ad. But I think on the broad swath of leagues, getting Josh Downs, who is a strong after-the-catch type of player, which is perfect for Gardner Minshew, who just wants to check it down and has done that a ton when he's played in three meaningful games. He's had 4 snaps in one other game. He's probably the majority of the top ads. In a more technical sense, sure, you could probably say Roschon, not in my league, but if he is in your league, yes, he's the top ad.
So even if Roschon gets cleared tomorrow, which he'll have 10 days to get cleared for this game, he will probably get cleared, Roschon. But even if he does, we need to be dabbling in D'Onta Foreman, who is only 7% rostered on Yahoo. I'm sure it's similar across every service, maybe in a little higher percent roster in some of the harder core services, but even the hardest core people aren't really rostering D'Onta Foreman.
I actually got to see if he's available in my one FFPC league because we have Khalil Herbert. It's one of the main event teams, and we have had Khalil Herbert. We're still good. Don't pity us too much. But we are the classic churning Gus Edwards and Justice Hill and Taj Spears was on our bench type of that type of roster. So I think D'Onta Foreman absolutely should be added in all leagues. Maybe we get around to Sunday and he's not worth starting. I think if Roschon plays, you'd be down bad if you're starting D'Onta Foreman. But there's this sort of binary outcome where if Roschon doesn't clear concussion protocol, it's possible, though. I think, like you said, since they play on Thursday, they get a much longer turnaround. I'd say he's probably 65 to 70, 30 to play. But on that 30% that he doesn't play, D'Onta Foreman almost certainly projects for the RB 16 or something.
This is a really big week for the Bears offense, who have taken advantage of really good matchups. But the first thing you need to do to be a good offense is take advantage of poor defenses. The Vikings profile is another poor defense, not to the level really of the Broncos or the Commanders. Even the Commanders seem like they're heading south on defense.
Oh yeah, I had a tweet that was if you think the Justin Fields record-setting day versus the Broncos was a fluke, you might be right. It is a terrible defense. You'll never believe who they play the upcoming weeks, and it was obviously the Commanders last week who they torched. The Vikings, who were a below average, not terrible, but below average team in EPA per drop back allowed. I think maybe Chargers comes up in there at some point, allowing a ton of yards. And eventually in week 9 or so, they get back to a good team. But Fields gets a stretch of very easy matchups. this is the hardest, and it's still an above average matchup in terms of the ease of the matchup.
So anyway, don't be afraid to get your questions in. We're now going to start diving into the questions first from Squad Goals, who, I mean, every week we're talking about Naji Harris. I feel like is one of the most controversial players in fantasy. He was all summer. He was all last season. Didn't for a while. He'd been outperforming Jaylen Warren. Jaylen Warren finally got him in week 5. Got him pretty good. This again, only 2 teams on bye this week, so we're close to a full roster in most leagues. Are we benching Naji Harris until further notice? The Steelers are on bye this week.
I was going to say, good news. I don't have to tell you to bench him.
Yeah.
He's still getting, like you said, he's still getting a bunch of work, and he still is narrowly beating Jaylen Warren in rush yards over expected and success rate. But as you pointed out, early in the season, whether or not the film would agree with this, I think most of the film people said no, didn't agree with this. But the advanced metrics said Najee was performing not only better than Warren, but well. He looked like a top 10 running back for like 3 or so weeks. Then week 4 comes around, his numbers start to come back. And then last week, he looks like the Najee we know. And on the other hand, Warren starts to look a little more explosive. And Warren has already been kind of putting a lot of space between himself and Najee in terms of his pass catching prowess. So I'm going to say yes. Further notice means starting in week 7, because you said he doesn't play week 6, luckily. But would I play? Let's say Gardner Minshew is still playing in 2 weeks. There's probably a decent chance in full PPR I'm playing Josh Downs over Najee Harris. We'll get a week of action to see, like, oh, does Josh Downs pick up another 8-target game? But my projection, if they were both just playing in this coming week, would probably be Downs over Harris. Reed is, I was looking at London next. London is tough because he is clearly his team's top receiver and clearly a talented player. And yet the fantasy points, we can't find them.
I'd say we'd be playing London and Downs over Naji Harris right now, because the problem is they come up by to not a great schedule at the Rams. It's not like they're an amazing defense this year, but
they're going to be road dogs in that game, though.
Yeah, they'll be road dogs in that game. Then they're playing the Jaguars. Then they're playing the Titans, who you might not have guessed it yesterday. The Titans are known for their run defense, though. Not a great schedule for Naji Harris coming off by. Coming off by, there could be a greater commitment to Jaylen Warren. It's, of course, adjustment time for the Steelers, who probably feel happy to feel lucky to be alive entering their bye at 3-2. Like, not a 3-2 team by any reasonable measure other than the record saying they're 3-2. They're a team that needs to make changes. There were indications. I don't know if you caught this viral thing. It seems like Kenny Pickett changed the play call on the game-winning touchdown.
No. Okay, so
Matt Canada wasn't happy about it.
That is not what happened. He calls like Randy or something, right? It literally, Randy starts with an R because it's protection right. He is telling them that there's like an extra pass rusher on the right. He did not change the play call. He literally told either the running back or maybe a tight end to pick up protection on the right. They would have said, if I remember correctly, like Larry or something, literally means just like slide protection left, slide protection right. This was not a play call change. It was a very, very minor.
Why was Matt Canada so
I don't know why. I agree. There is no.
I think he might have wanted to like drain the clock and then kick the field goal. But
it's possible that's the case.
The touchdown
because Matt Canada. So yeah, what happens is pre-snap, Pickett calls. I think it's Randy. It's something that starts with an R because it means right. Like Randy, and then they score, and then you get the shot in the booth or whatever of the Steelers staff, which Matt Canada calls plays from above, is sitting in. Everyone's going crazy, and Matt Canada is just like staring into the distance. It's very weird. After they literally, I don't know if that was the last play of the game, but it was game winning.
That wasn't the last play, because I think he might have been upset that the Ravens were getting the ball back with the chance to win.
They had scored like what, 7 points, 10 points?
They had 10. Like it was 15. The touchdown made it 15-10.
Yeah, Matt Canada's reaction makes no sense. Obviously, like he should have thought that they were, 90% to win that game after that. And he seems sullen or whatever. But no, Kenny Pickett did almost certainly, I can't say with 100% certainty, but 98% certainty, he shifted protection to the right for a pass rush situation type of thing.
It's enough about the Steelers. We're going to ask about now. This is honestly one of the, I would say, hotter button waiver guys of week 6. One of the higher variance waiver guys, because we don't know James Conner's status with his knee. Amari DiMercado had a good game in place of James Conner on Sunday. But Keontae Ingram had been the number 2 back all year. He's been down with a neck injury. So we just don't really know what kind of situation is going to be existing in the Cardinals backfield. So in uncertainty, a lot of times you can find value. Are we calling Amari DiMercado an ad in this information vacuum right now heading into week 6?
Oh yeah, I ran him as the cover boy of the waiver wire column, just because I think running back is sort of more important to be grinding the wire for, in that every running back ad is almost certainly the result of a running back injury or benching, something of that nature. So every time we say, oh, this running back looks good, it typically means someone in your league lost a running back for one reason or the other. So I typically think running back is a good spot to be like weekly grinding the wire, almost stream, especially for some teams, could really be treating it like streaming that second position like a quarterback spot. Like you said, Marcado is really volatile in that the outcomes are somewhat binary in that, and maybe if is trinary a word, maybe you could say it's trinary.
It's not a word, but
if Keontae Ingram comes back, I don't know if he will. He hasn't been like practicing much, if at all, recently.
And neck is one of the more concerning injury designations.
Yeah.
They did not play someone injured reserve. I think he's missed 2 games. So in theory, he should be back in a week or 2. But it also just could be a lingering neck injury that they can't get a grip on.
Yep. So if he comes back, I still think Marcado gets the start, but it could truly be a very uninteresting committee in which none of the guys produces better than like running back 37 numbers. You don't want that guy on your roster, essentially. But then there's another outcome in which Connor misses, Ingram isn't able to play, or even Ingram is able to play and they just run with Marcado. This has been a backfield that has seen a ton of usage, and it's all been funneled to one player so far. And when Connor went out last week, they did not use Corey Clement, who I think is either the third running back or practice squad call-up, but he's been with the team for a few weeks now. He did not see a single snap on offense, if I remember correctly. So there's a very realistic chance in which Marcado goes out there. He's a strong pass catcher as well. It's kind of his entire job in college. He's like functionally a 3-down back. Even if that's just for a game or 2, that running back is going to project for top 20 numbers on almost any offense, and let alone a Cardinals offense. That's fine. I don't think they're great, but they're certainly not as bad as we thought they were in August. So
give it time. But
do you think they'll really be like?
I think we've probably seen the peak of the Cardinals offense.
I think that's fair. We've probably seen the peak, but I still, what, didn't we get a Josh Dobbs pick 6 or fumble 6?
We did, but I believe it was in a desperation situation. Maybe
okay.
I can't remember.
I was gonna say,
speaking out of turn on that.
Even with or without that, Dobbs has generally played in a way that is not going to annihilate his own team's chances of winning. Is it like boosting it? I don't know about that, but I think it's a functional offense that is willing to give one running back the ball a lot. That's almost the perfect setup for a running back. When you see these like super pass heavy teams have a running back, i.e. like Isaiah Pacheco, if he doesn't break a 60-yard run, it's kind of over. You want these middle of the road, good offense, but balanced teams, and the way David Montgomery's set up is so perfect for fantasy points. Marcado and James Conner, when he comes back, could be in that spot. So I think he's absolutely an ad. And if you are like desperate for a running back this week, and assuming Roschon isn't available, I guess for a lot of our listeners of this show, Roschon is not available. Marcado is, if you need a running back, the top ad, even over Josh Downs if you need it.
The Cardinals claimed Tony Jones off waivers on Monday, an indication that at least one of Connor or Ingram is going to miss the game, if not possibly both. Yep. So that's a good leading indicator for adding Marcado. The Priceless Pigeon wants to know if you would trade Tutu Atwell and Gerald Everett for Jacobi Meyers. The other guy has horrible tight ends, so he needs Gerald Everett. What do you think of this 2-for-1?
Oh, this is a windmill. This is the, like, generally you and I both agree that like the 2-for-1s are like, oh, you can find Gerald Everett on waivers. He's just the same as any other tight end. But this is even like more of a layup in that Jacobi Meyers' usage has been truly elite. His usage looks like that of a lot of number 1 receivers on other teams around the league. The Raiders just happen to have a like number 1 plus receiver, but they throw to their other receivers, tight ends, and running backs outside of Josh Jacobs so little that they have room for what looks more like 2 wide receiver 1s than a wide receiver 1 and a wide receiver 2. Tutu Atwell's, like he scored or whatever, but truly, when you have Cooper Kupp and the way Puka's been playing, I don't think there's room for really a third meaningfully impactful receiver, and Gerald Everett's running like half of the routes. This is free money.
Yeah, Jacobi Meyers, it's a shame he had the concussion because he might have already been locked in as like a top 30, maybe even a top 24 guy. There'd be a little less uncertainty than there is. We're going to get some clarity against these Packers on Monday night. And I think Jacobi Meyers is going to be viewed as a clear-cut top 30 guy. Where Tutu Atwell, even though he got the tutter yesterday, as you said, just a lot more uncertainty there. And I would much rather have, it feels like a 2-for-1, where you were easily winning, Mr. Pigeon. Trade Travis Kelce, Christian Kirk. Wow, this is a lot of names. Kelce, Kirk, Jerome Ford for Puka, Mostert, and Devonte Smith. I think I know what I would do. What would you do?
Puka Mostert and Devonte Smith. I'm keeping Kelce, Kirk, and Ford. I think the future is a bit uncertain with Ford, given how they've used their other running backs. But we know Mostert is clearly the second running back on his team. Even if they're splitting the work, he's going to be the second in production. Kirk is also somewhat clearly his team's wide receiver one. He continues to dominate the targets on that team. And Kelce gives you the biggest positional advantage that fantasy has to offer.
I think I would honestly maybe take side two and do a bit of a sell high on Kirk and Ford, because I think Calvin Ridley's going to re-seize the mantle and the Jaguars receiver core. And he's already had 2 greater upside games than Christian Kirk had, not in like the touchdown department, I guess, but
not in the fantasy points department.
I feel like we've gotten 2 alpha games legit out of Calvin Ridley, where the 2 really good Christian Kirk games are kind of more compiling games. This is a very even trade, though. I think, especially if you have Evan Ingram like burning a hole in your pocket on the bench, though. I think Puka and Devonte are the second and third best players in this deal. There's a chance Mostert's the 4th best player in this deal. We don't really know what's going on with Devon Achan's health.
That's a good point.
Concerningly very cagey about it. Yeah, yes. They were very concerning the way they're talking about. But it also could just be classic, like, dumb coach caging it. He's limited on Wednesday and he's mostly fine. Yeah. But this is a very even trade, as evidenced by the fact that we are split on it. Travis Kelce, when in doubt, take the side of the best player in the deal. Travis Kelce is still the best player in that deal. I will say that. Another Marcado question. Who is the worst running back you would drop for Marcado? So Pollard, Mostert. You can't drop any of those guys for Marcado. Sorry, Savulu. You're here every week, but I know what it's like, man. You want to churn, you like really want to add somebody, and like you're frustrated with guys. But yeah, even in the best of times, maybe with Jeff Wilson coming back, you could have like construct a case to drop Mostert, but even Mostert would in that scenario would be a really bad drop.
Yep.
You just have to sit tight. Let me see here. We have a strategy question. What should I do if I'm 1-3, about to be 1-4? Team is Herbie, Eckler, Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones down bad, not playing Monday night. Puka, James Cook, Garrett. I guess maybe who's someone he should look to sell, or what position should he be buying at? What do you think, Kyle?
I mean, the thing is, like, there's not much you can do here in the sense of like you've just run bad with Eckler and Aaron Jones. There's no like, oh, people perceive him this way, but you could actually get this amount of fantasy, like, trade return for him. There's not a lot of that going on. You've had your top 2 running backs very clearly not putting any, like, even Aaron Jones has been like a net negative because you've played him and he has lost you points in that he's, he came back last week and got like 5 touches or something, if I remember correctly. Austin Eckler hasn't gotten you anything. Kittle looks extremely good and produces all of his points in 3 weeks out of a 17-week season. I love George Kittle.
I don't know if there's anyone in the league that needs more consistent touches than George Kittle, who he would basically be like the true heir apparent to Rob Gronkowski if he just got anything resembling normal target share, because he's a rolling ball of butcher knives.
Dude, he is so sick.
It's such a shame he does not get more targets.
The problem is they have probably the best yards after the catch receiver in the NFL. They have right now, I think PFF's number 1 graded receiver in the NFL and Brandon Ayuk. The first one was Debo. And then they have very clearly, I think the best running back of my lifetime, probably.
The best receiving back since at least those Chiefs glory years of Priest Holmes. And Christian McCaffrey is the best receiving back probably since Priest Holmes and Marshall Faulk.
I was going to say, I think he's miles better than Priest Holmes. Marshall Faulk is the one I think where you can pick that fight.
Priest Holmes, we should pull up some Pro Football references after we're done with the chat. But yeah, Smile, I would say the problem here is, just Kyle said, you've basically been running cold. The backfield is pretty solid. The receiver core is definitely solid. You could maybe cash in some of this receiver depth. Some running back depth would maybe be the one thing,
especially with the way Aaron Jones feels like.
It's not. I'm not. The problem is, though, I don't know what he could do, because you'd be selling low on James Cook, you'd be selling low on Garrett Wilson, but you could maybe cash in some of that receiver depth. Running back is obviously the trouble spot. We don't even know for sure if Austin Eckler's coming back this week.
Yeah, we don't. I think he is, but if it came out, he missed the first practice, he was DNP Wednesday, wouldn't shock me. These things just take time, and they are taking more time than you really have to offer. I think if someone's willing to buy on Thielen, given that people were higher on Thielen coming into the season, and they've been right. They're absolutely right about that. I'd say maybe he's someone you could try and cash in the chips with, or even like a Lockett. But like you said, you're not cashing in what you paid for in draft capital with someone like Waddle, who's been fine, but not explosive yet. I think we'll get there. Or Garrett Wilson, who's just like not injury related specifically to the player, but injury related run bad. What are you going to do with Garrett Wilson? Like, you just had bad luck, unfortunately. So
here, I'll hit on a theme we were kind of hinting at earlier. Devon Anan, like, how concerned are we? There was a report right before we got on the air that the Dolphins are going to open up Jeff Wilson's 3-week practice window this week, so he could maybe return against the Panthers. We're not concerned about Jeff Wilson affecting Devon Achan's touches and production, but with Jeff Wilson coming back, that could be a reason for the Dolphins to opt for caution with Devon Achan, especially in a game where they're 2 touchdown favorites against the Carolina Panthers. So, I mean, we are concerned with the knee injury. I mean, how could we not be? But I mean, what do we even say in this information vacuum about? I would say it's good that we don't have a specific report on it being serious, because a guy who's been in the news so much, like Devon Achan, if it was already a bad injury, I think one of the national reporters would have been all over it. I'm like, torn meniscus.
Yes, I totally agree.
MCL.
Yep.
And
like
so
we know within
probably on the
hours,
minor side.
We know within hours when a player suffers a serious, could be placed on IR or could miss a month plus. We know that type of stuff basically by the time they get out of the x-ray room and then one of the trainers has a chance to text Adam Schefter. We haven't gotten them with that with Achan yet. Is it still possible he misses a week or two? That seems fairly possible. Do I think this is, I mean, the fact that they, I don't think they're putting him on IR, at least they haven't seemed to indicate that yet, tells me that this is not a long-term injury. I mean, it could still be a multi-week absence, but I'd set the line at 1.5. I think he's more likely to play this week than not, but then you've got this, maybe he misses a little more than one type of outcome. So yeah, I'd set the line at 1.5. Do you think that sounds fair?
That does sound fair. And working against him is just the fact that it's such, like, there's all the reason in the world for the Dolphins to have caution.
Who'd you say they play this week? You said it was a bloodbath.
The Panthers, and they're 13.5.
My God. Yes, exactly.
So unless the knee is like truly 100%, they probably hold them out because they got the Eagles then on tap for week 7. So Devon Achan, I would be counting on at least a game, but 1.5 feels very reasonable to me. I would take the under in 1.5 right now. It seems like maybe just being cautious with the guy too. Devon Achan, he's not like a bigger bruising running back who can maybe play at less than 100%. Devon Achan's whole thing is he's probably got to be 100% for his speed, his special trait, which is a problem with those kind of players because you're almost never going to be 100%. So we're not unconcerned about Devon Achan.
So Christian McCaffrey has as many 700-yard receiving seasons as Priest Holmes has 600. He has more 1,000-yard seasons than Priest Holmes has 700-yard seasons.
All right. Well, so
to your credit, though, Priest Holmes with 600-yard seasons was more than I expected. So I probably undersold him a little bit in my mind. You maybe have forgotten the greatness of McCaffrey, which I believe is the third ever 1,000 season in 2019.
I believe it was a Bills. One of the Bills running backs did it in the late 80s, early 90s. But Marshall Faulk and CMC are heads and shoulders above the rest of the field. Alex has a trade question. This guy wants Mahomes and Zay Flowers, and he's giving up Jamar Chase and Drake London. His other QB is CJ Stroud. He's got T. Higgins, Garrett Wilson, JSN, and Dotson. Pretty interesting trade. What would you tell Alex, Kyle?
Guy wants Mahomes and Zay Flowers, and he's giving me Chase and Drake London. Yeah, I would. The best player in this trade is Jamar Chase, as far as fantasy value goes, by a wide margin. Like Chase last week, last night or last afternoon, essentially confirmed that he is still that top 5 fantasy asset. And Burrow looked, he looked as mobile and as physically there as he has looked at any point this season. That tells me that we're more or less back to, okay, Chase is a top 5 fantasy player. If you want to jump Tyreek Hill over him after what we've seen from Hill, I'm not going to, pick that fight. The same with McCaffrey. He's a top 5 fantasy player. And Mahomes is still a top 3 to 4 quarterback, but getting literally a top 5 pick versus a top 30-ish fantasy pick, whatever. Throw out the rest of the trade or don't care. I want the top 5 fantasy guy.
It's so hard to trade Mahomes, but your analysis was spot on. Chase is far and away the most fantasy value. The gulf between Mahomes and Stroud like isn't that large, and you just have too much excess value right now rostering Mahomes and CJ Stroud. And the upgrade of getting Chase is just worth, because you are going to take a hit at quarterback, but the upgrade in Chase is going to more than offset that hit. And I think you got to make the deal.
Roger Craig, Pat. Roger Craig is the other 1,000.
Roger Craig. All right. Who is the guy on the Bills?
I don't know who the guy you're talking about on the Bills is.
I don't want to seem like a total Zoomer idiot, but maybe Thurman Thomas had an absolutely amazing. I can't remember which of the Bills.
Yeah.
Can't remember which of the Bills guys was an amazing receiver. It doesn't look like Thurman Thomas had. Well, he was a good receiving back. We are getting way too far afield here, though.
Sorry.
Johnny D wants to know who he is rolling with in the flex. I guess it's tonight. Josh Jacobs, Jacobi Meyers. This is definitely Josh Jacobs, Johnny.
Yep.
You got to get those running back touches in there immediately. Tonight, would we start Jaden Reed over Christian Watson? I have an answer to this, but what would you say? With the caveat that the Packers are proving to be extremely unreliable narrators on these guys' injuries. Very, very unreliable narrators on Christian Watson and Aaron Jones.
I'm still going to take Christian Watson, but I can't argue with your point that what like we saw last week, both of them came back. That is Christian Watson and Aaron Jones, and then they played extremely limited roles. And Aaron Jones' role apparently wasn't limited enough, as he ends up not playing tonight. So it's very possible we see Christian Watson go out here and run 13 routes and play 30% of the team snaps. I still want to be betting on Watson's upside over someone like Reed. But like, I'm totally fine. I think it's almost just a floor ceiling situation. It is. They probably have a medium projection that looks pretty similar.
So that sounds right. Watson, I just can't quit that upside, but maybe I should quit that upside soon. Really, really relying on him. And Christian, we need you to throw down tonight, Mr. Young Man. The Admiral is here every week. Time to drop Cam Akers for a lottery ticket. Jamison Williams, Jeff Wilson, Taj Spears, or is Cam a lottery ticket? Pretty interesting question. Very inconclusive so far between Alexander Madison and Cam Akers.
Yeah, I think the question says Tajay Sharp, which is a throwback to some of my really down bad dynasty teams, but I assume it means Taj Spears. Yeah, I'm not holding on to Cam Akers. I think the thing is, if he was sort of they took a flyer on this upside type of back, maybe they eventually work him into a role type of player, sure, but he has been one of the least efficient running backs over the past year and a half, 2 years. So even if he gets into the Alexander Madison role, just fully takes it over someday, I'm not sure what he produces on that. Whereas Jamison Williams, if he realizes on his talent, could be a true like wide receiver 2 splash play difference maker for his team. Tajay, I almost read it as Tajay Sharp. Tajay Spears, he has already outsnapped Derrick Henry in 3 of 5 games. He has some PPR floor value. It's not a ton, but it's like running back 36 weekly value. And then should anything happen to Derrick Henry, he will get the entirety of the workload. I don't think they have given another running back on that roster a single touch yet, if I remember correctly.
No, that sounds correct. Sounds very, very correct. And your information sounded very, very correct as I was trying to handle an internal Rotoworld.
I see you. I have it on another screen.
I'm gonna stop doing that now, though. Devon Anan for Devonte Smith. Is this Devon Anan? I totally understand trying to trade Devon Anan because even though we said this after his first game, I can't keep running this hot. He has kept running that hot, but
he's kept running hotter, as you said, right? He's
he's actually been more efficient. He hasn't
blew my mind
quite the way yet. Or his yards per carry from his 200-yard game, which I believe is 11.3, is actually his lowest of the past 3 weeks.
That's not right.
This truly unreal efficiency. But as was the case like Anthony Richardson, where we had like pretty serious injury concerns, we have injury concerns with a guy who's this small, and it's the guy who's this hyper efficient. I actually am, as sad as it is to sell high on someone like Devon Anan, who is one of the most special like fantasy players we've seen in a while. I do think he is probably also equally volatile. And I feel good selling high on Devon Anan, but is Devonte Smith enough of a sell high return?
Yeah, Devonte Smith's not enough of a sell high return for me, because if you're ranking rest of season, let's say without the injury first. That's kind of my starting point. Without the Anan injury, rest of season, I don't care about the efficiency. Like, he's my RB5 probably. I would not give up the RB5 for what we're getting from Devonte Smith, which is like volatile wide receiver 16, 15 type of numbers. I just wouldn't give that guy up. With the injury is the only way you could really sell me on selling high on Achane if you think that people are undervaluing the risk of him missing like significant amount of time. I'm not at that sort of threat level yet with his injury. So I would need more. I still think it's reasonable to try and sell high because yes, he is like literally, he's obviously not going to average 12 yards a carry. But do I think he'll lead the league in yards per carry at the end of the year? Yeah, I'm pretty confident in that, frankly. So I would need more to sell high. I'm open to the idea, but there is no way you can't get a wide receiver, like a true locked in top 10 receiver, not like a fringe 11, 12 to 14 range. I think you can get more.
That is true. I think even if you're totally committed to selling high, you can get more for Devon Anan. Even in this information vacuum with the knee injury, which if you were like, it's pretty disappointing if you came into Monday like, all right, this is the week I'm selling high on Devon Anan. And of course the injury concern pops up. So speaking of that information vacuum, so we're dealing with a very incomplete set of cards here. We don't know Devon Achan's injury status. We don't truly know Jeff Wilson's injury status, even though he might resume practicing this week. Just thoughts on Jeff Wilson, beginning with, let's say, is he an add in 12-team leagues? Which I think he's an add in 12-team leagues, but I could see the argument that he's not. But is he an add in 12-team leagues, Jeff Wilson?
Yeah, I think the only reason I know for sure, I believe for sure that he's an add in even 12-team, your standard size leagues, is the Achane injury. I do think that if he were to come back and Achane would have not been in any way health concerned, I would say I'm not really sure what we see from him. Maybe they bring him in and short down and distance stuff and he can punch in the occasional touchdown.
I do think that is kind of what's going to – I would not be shocked, even though his backfield has been so effective, to see Mike McDaniel make it a three-man backfield. I
definitely think it's possible, but I think he would be a distant third man in the backfield because he doesn't fit the profile of what they're trying to do, which is spread out teams and then shred them with your speed. That's not what he's going to do. Could he still play a role that scores the occasional touchdown? Sure, but I don't think that's something that you'd really be relying on a weekly sense of like, oh, he's getting 8 carries and 1 catch a game. He's probably not the type of guy where he gets almost 10 touches and you say, well, at least he put up 110 yards. Like, he's not that type of player. But now with the Achane injury, there is a much bigger share of the pie potentially to go around. He should be added because I think what would happen is essentially they would have Mostert take some of the Achane style touches, and then Mostert was still getting like passing down work. He was still getting short yardage work. That would very understandably start going to Jeff Wilson. So the upside now with Achane out is absolutely there on a, probably a more like 2 to 3 week timeline. He should be added in all leagues. Though if Achane plays, like you might just want to cut him at that point and say like, oh, who's the next waiver wire churn I can make?
Yeah, exactly. And that was the point I was making, Jeff Wilson. You should add him, but then also be prepared to immediately drop him. And if Achane and Mostert are both healthy, Jeff Wilson is a much bigger concern for Raheem Mostert than Devon Achane, who essentially has his own position.
Yes.
He's almost got like a new position. Devon Achane is the running back we get running as fast as an Olympic sprinter before we snap the ball. I would say that's maybe a new position in football. Can we still trust James Cook as an RB2 going forward? He's losing passing game usage. Very, very weird stuff for James Cook. I guess we knew it wouldn't be normal with James Cook, but it's been even weirder than I was expecting, Kyle.
Yeah, he probably still is in that RB2 range. But like you said, if we don't know what his goal line usage looks like, we don't know what his passing down usage looks like. You called him, or at least you said you were worried he would be in the Chase Edmonds zone of like efficient runner who doesn't get any of the touches we care about. That looks pretty correct so far. He's so efficient and on such a good team that I still think you can say he's in the RB2 range, but he went from at some point me thinking he could be the RB9 or whatever to now like 20, 18, depending on the week, depending on buys, depending on his matchup, which is sort of a fall from grace for what we thought the ceiling outcome could be.
It's just weird though, because I think things could just keep changing on a weekly basis.
Well, that's the thing is 2 weeks ago.
It feels unsettled. It feels so unsettled.
100%. 2 weeks ago, he started losing a little passing down work to Latavius Murray. It was also his first game in which he saw the majority of the team's goal line snaps, which is like a very weird turn for them to be like, all right, we don't trust you pass blocking anymore. And I think he's like, like 200 pounds on the dot almost or something like that. He's putting you on the goal line.
On your side. Yeah.
Yeah. So like you said, I just don't think they have exactly settled what they want to do with their running backs who all have like useful but hyper specialized skill sets.
just a very quick, we have a lot more questions to get to, but I say a mini rant I always have about the Bills is I think more than any team in the NFL, they overthink running back committees. And every year, this would be the third straight year that one of their down the stretch adjustments would be, all right, let's just commit to one back. And every time they do it, their backfield gets more effective and it takes pressure. They have had, I feel like they've very poorly managed their running back committees. And it just seems like they're doing it again, overthinking the best player in the backfield. Like, stop trying to hyper specialize everything, but especially with these mediocre talents like Latavius Murray and Damian Harris. Just don't overthink it. Commit to someone. And even if that someone was Devin Singletary, you will see better results. Colby is wondering, would we trade Jaylen Waddle and Puka Nacua for Austin Eckler? He has Cooper Kupp on his team. This is a fascinating trade. In theory, we love getting a top 3 or 4 running back, but a top 3 or 4 running back returning from a high ankle sprain that a lot of times, even once you come back, still takes several weeks for you to get more up to speed. What do we tell Colby?
Yeah, I think you kind of laid it out well. I think I still go Waddle and Puka. I know we haven't gotten the Waddle blow-up game yet, but we've seen he's had like 2 games over 80 yards. I think last week he led the team in both targets, and it was either 4 or 5 end zone targets. Standing in the end zone, all he needs to do is secure a catch. One of them wasn't accurate enough for him to catch, I believe. One of them was broken up. One of them was caught, and then one of them was tipped into a pick 6. Like, there are multiple avenues for this guy to have a complete explosion game. Once that happens, I don't think we'll be talking about him as like should we just sell on this guy right now? And Puka, I think, is probably more in that wide receiver, like 16, 20, 12. There's a lot of guys in that range, but that's still a really strong fantasy asset. So I'm going to take the 2 receivers, assuming you don't have like a real strong need at running back. If you're desperate at running back, sure, but that's the extent I have to push it to. If you're even okay at running back, give me the 2 receivers.
I would say that it would be desperate. And sometimes you do have to make desperate moves. If you just like are down horribly at running back, you might have to do something desperate. But it's the guy coming off that kind of injury, that is too much value to give up. And Jaylen Waddle is just like the running cold, like the least lucky guy in the league so far, I would say. And
tell that Tony Pollard and all my teams.
I know it's true.
My magazine.
It's astonishing that Jaylen Waddle has not gotten his yet, so to speak, in this offense. Just real quick, all I'll say, you don't have to answer this one, Kyle. Can you give my Saints some credit? I'll just say that it seems like the Saints kind of have Brian Flores disease to me, where it seems like they think it's like illegal to win a game by more than like 3 points. And like, thankfully with the Patriots, that was not an issue. But I think the Saints need to open things up a little bit on offense. Adam has a question. If you had to trade for Bijan Robinson, or if you had to trade Bijan Robinson or Josh Jacobs for wide receiver, who would you give up? So are we selling Josh Jacobs, or are we selling Bijan Robinson?
I'm selling Jacobs. I think they're both they're both like RB1s, but they're both seeing RB1 usage, and they're both like RB1s in terms of what I project their fantasy points. But I'm going to take what, to me, like just eye test, but also the advanced metrics would also agree is like the most dynamic running back in the NFL right now in Bijan Robinson, as opposed to Jacobs, who has been struggling in the efficiency metrics. I don't think he'll continue to struggle as bad, but I don't want to bet on needing a bounce back versus Bijan, who his role in the first 2 weeks was suspect, and then has immediately, it took about 3 weeks for them to realize that the best running back prospect in around about 3 to 5 years conservatively should get all of our touches. And then they have since given him all of their touches. So
except for yesterday,
he's still got a bunch of targets, at least.
He did yesterday. Just don't pitsify it, Atlanta. Do not pitsify Bijan Robinson. You cannot do this to us again. I still feel really good about Bijan. I can already see him becoming the new Kyle Pitts before our eyes. The cheeky Fred Savard joke. He needs 5 points tonight. Are we going Jaden Reed or Luke Musgrave? I think Jaden Reed, better touchdown potential. What do you say, Kyle?
Yeah, I think it's Reed. I think you're just more likely to get more targets. Unless there's like no PPR value, like if it's 0 PPR, even then it's probably still Reed because they're probably splitting touchdowns. But yeah, I think you're just more likely to get more targets from Reed. So that's what I'd go with.
We have another too much excess value on my bench for Cris. He has Darren Waller and Dallas Goedert. Who to trade? It's an interesting one. I think I have an answer. I'm not entirely sure what your answer is going to be, though, Kyle.
Oh, I'd assume you're going to say Darren Waller, right?
I'm giving up on Darren Waller.
For sure. Give me the dude who plays with like a bottom 1 offensive line and a below average quarterback. His volume is almost certainly on a market share basis better. but it's the Kyle Pitts conundrum of it doesn't matter how much of the pie you have. If it's a rotten spoiled pie, I don't want it as much. I still have a limit to how much I can turn it down. Waller is, especially compared to Goedert, give me a smaller cut of a delectable pie with Dallas Goedert.
I absolutely hate my spoiled pies. This is an interesting theory question, I feel like, because I agree with, in theory, selling high on Raheem Mostert, even though he's the healthy one, even though he would stand to benefit, even if it was only one game, he would stand to benefit from Devon Anan missing time. But Raheem Mostert is someone that you should be looking to sell high on just because it's a committee. His injury history is so concerning. He wore down very badly as the year wore on last year. But so I'm assuming maybe Brandon's been offered Aaron Jones, and we just have no clue what's going on with Aaron Jones. It's not great that he missed time, came back, and then has had 10 days, and he's like too hurt to play. It's very not a great situation.
I still think I want to go with Aaron Jones. Like, if you're like, the easiest way to frame it is like, if you're redrafting today, given that Aaron Jones was like a 4th round pick or whatever, and Mostert was like 13th or whatever, 12th, 13th after Jeff Wilson got put on IR, has that moved enough where they have crossed paths? I don't think they have yet. They have obviously come a lot closer. I'm still going to take Aaron Jones.
I think I'm still taking Aaron Jones too, but just with the caveat, you could lose that trade pretty badly.
Yeah.
And it makes sense in theory.
And in this case, we're putting the theory into practice, though there are times where we're like, theory, it's textbook stuff. Let's not worry about it. We are concerned with it in this case.
We're getting into the theory. Andrew Chisholm, DJ Moore for Smith and Nico Collins. I'm assuming that is Devonte Smith. So he's trying to sell high on DJ Moore, which selling high on DJ Moore like a thing anymore, or is he just too rocking and rolling? And even in this really roller coaster Bears offense, can we not be giving up on DJ Moore at this point?
I think I would actually maybe take Devonte Smith and Nico Collins here. Another one where, like, where do I think, let's talk about, assuming it's Devonte Smith, let's talk about Devonte Smith and DJ Moore. DJ Moore is like a 4th round pick and Devonte Smith was a 2nd round pick. Do I think they have crossed? They're probably right there because DJ Moore's looked incredible and Devonte Smith just not doing a ton right now. But I don't think they have crossed to some degree that I want to give up Nico Collins, who right now looks like a very strong wide receiver 2 option. And Tank Dell is hurt with concussion, so his near-term production could be even better. And your other receivers, in terms of Chris Godwin and Michael Pittman, I'm probably playing Pittman every week, but Godwin just has not been doing much. We still got to wait and see what the deal with Mike Evans was, like a groin injury. What is wrong?
I believe it was hamstring. He was like stomping around the sideline trying to come back. And
nice. Good for him.
He's now had their bye. So
yeah. So, okay. So that's what I thought. I thought
featured him too. This is how our brains work. They featured him in an ad this week for their creamsicle throwbacks this weekend. I'm like, oh, he's playing. He's definitely
nice. So yeah, assuming Mike Evans is back, which I thought was relatively likely, and it seems like you've assured me of that it's likely, not guaranteed. Godwin just, like, he doesn't seem to be able to push Evans for targets. Evans seems to be very clearly his team's wide receiver 1, and Godwin is a very clear number 2, and Baker's willing to just chuck it up to Godwin or chuck it up to Evans. So I'm going to say you want to flip that starting spot, assuming you can start 3 in a flex, so 4. You want to flip for having Devonte Smith and Nico Collins both being in your starting lineup every week.
Austin Webster wants to normalize yards per carry premium leagues. I'm assuming this is a Devon Anan.
It's actually Gus Edwards' tweet. Gus Edwards sitting on my FFPC main event bench.
It could also be someone poking a little fun at us, but hey, he's gonna keep running this hot, Austin. I don't know what to tell you, man. He's gonna keep running AI learners, always learning that AI. Basically asking, is Julian McLaughlin Wally pipped Javonte Williams, even if Javonte Williams is healthy? Had not been lighting the world on fire before injuring his hip. Sean Payton basically making all sorts of noise about a youth movement. What say you, Kyle?
I'm going to say no, in that the most likely outcome is, what was Javonte, like a 2nd or 3rd round pick? Day 2 pick. I forget.
Man. Oh, you mean in real life?
Yeah, no, sorry. Real life.
Wow, I don't remember him being that high.
No, sorry. Yeah. A real life 2nd, was it 2nd round pick?
He was a day 2 pick. I can't remember if it was 2nd or 3rd. I believe it was 3rd, actually.
Whatever it was, like, has been extremely productive up until this past 3 to 4 game stretch in terms of his efficiency. And then came out and was clearly the, like, starting 1A. Sure, he was splitting time with Samaje Perine, but then in the preseason, they were also giving him a ton of work. All of that body of work tells me that he's going to outcarry a UDFA, even if he looks good, over the course of the rest of the season. Do I think that is much less likely to happen than it was in week 1 when I had never heard of Jaleel McLaughlin? I had, but only slightly. You get the point. Yeah, Jaleel McLaughlin has made a very strong push. But if you just take me straight up, carries per game, rest of season, I'm still taking Javonte.
It's hard to see how it couldn't be Javonte, even though I do think it has become at least kind of a debate.
Yeah,
we'll go rapid fire. We're kind of running out of time here. Kyron Williams and Puka for Tony Pollard. I love Puka Nacua, Kyle, but I feel like you got to do this probably.
Yeah, do it.
And even with Kyron being an every snap player, 2 for 1, you're giving up a non-trivial amount of value, but you are winning that trade. Let's see here. Hold on. I said we're going to rapid fire, and I'm trying to find a. Do you think DJ Moore is going to go nuts against the Vikings this weekend again? Basically, have the Bears done enough to earn our trust in good matchups, Kyle?
Yeah, in good matchups, yes.
Elia, sorry, I don't know. He's a very, very frequent viewer. Sorry, I don't know how to say your name correctly. Are we shopping T. Higgins? Hoping for a Carolina or Giants. He means okay. Are we shopping T. Higgins in fantasy and then hoping for a trade in real life?
I took it as the other way. Are they shopping T. Higgins? But either way, I'm not trying to a Carolina or Giants trade would be terrible. It's like 2 of the worst starting quarterbacks in the NFL in most efficiency metrics.
Quite bad. I feel like a team that's as all in as the Bengals will not be trading T.
And I feel like a team that is clearly, we got like a second report. There was like one quick pop-up of like, I think it was Jordan Schultz, if I remember correctly. It was like, the Panthers are looking for a potential wide receiver 1. Then quickly after that, we got they're not really willing to give up that much to get this player. I think they probably saw one more loss and we're like, okay, just kidding. We're a 2024 and beyond team. And the Giants, I guess they're more likely to do it because I guess Daniel Jones looks like he's going to be okay. But I still don't know with the way their season's going if they're going to look at this and be like, oh, we're a T. Higgins away, because they're clearly not. It's just what is their opinion of that? Of course, they're going to hold themselves in higher regard. But no, the best outcome possible is for T. Higgins to get healthy and stay on a top 5 passing attack versus being the head of the dragon of the worst teams in the passing teams in the league.
The Giants are in one of the worst spots, I feel like, in recent NFL history because it's a clear gut job, but they can't do it because they've paid the quarterback so much money. Should we give away DeAndre Swift and CeeDee Lamb for Keenan Allen and James Cook? I feel like the answer is no, Kyle. But what do you think?
Agree.
DeAndre Swift, I feel like, has earned our trust. I think he has earned our trust. He's not going to get the touchdown every week because Jalen Hurts doesn't get so many touchdowns, but pretty steady carries floor at this point. Pretty intriguing carry ceiling. The Eagles have unfortunately played a lot of really close games, but they're going to have some not close games down the stretch where I think you could see just punishing second half DeAndre Swift mode. And 30 carries is unlikely, whatever the number was he had in week 2 or 3. But I think it's been kind of a fluke that he hasn't had another 20 carry game since then. And the floor is really nice. And I do think the ceiling is still there. We're just about 12-man super flex for a sports lover. Top 2 QBs are Lamar and Cousins. Sam Howell on the bench. Do we swap out Sam Howell for Anthony Richardson? Even though, Anthony
live a little, brother.
Month. He's going to miss an entire month, man.
I guess it depends when Lamar and Cousins buys are. But even then, pick up Gardner Minshew or find the next backup quarterback or just play someone else in the flex for one single game, because when Anthony Richardson plays, he is a top 5 fantasy quarterback. Now, when he plays is a caveat that clearly matters at this point because the nature of the way he plays invites contact at a position where he can get lit up. But with that being said, I want my third quarterback in a super flex league to be a top 5 quarterback as opposed to Sam Howell, who is never cracking your line.
It's weird. Yeah, Sam Howell has made legitimate progress, but there's things that are about his game are a little too concerned. It's frankly shocking.
He made progress?
Frankly shocking. He hasn't gotten hurt yet. He is standing and delivering, but he's doing it in the teeth of the defense. And I was
going to say, he is getting ravaged by sacks. I don't think he did versus the Bears. Hey, shocker. He survived versus the Bears. He also did. He took 5 sacks to a Bears defense. I know he dropped back a lot, but I don't really know if he's made progress as much as he faced the Bears.
That's a very, very good point. And unfortunately, we are now out of time. Check out Kyle's waiver wired column. Check out my early rankings. They're going live in our football tools Tuesday afternoon. They go then live, of course, in my article on the site on Thursday. To check out Denny's regression files. Check out Zach's snap and usage report on Wednesday. Just check out everything. Site is loaded with amazing content. It's loaded with news this week. Unfortunately, we have a lot of big injury questions. So for Kyle Dvorchak, I'm Patrick Daugherty. We'll be back at 6 p.m. Eastern next Monday.